What's going on, guys? I'm Michael Anthony, and thank you for checking out my article in this month's Shutter magazine. Guys, this month we're talking all about 5 tips for getting it right in camera. Now, my article is filled with a lot of good information about how you can go about getting your shot right in camera, but in this video, I specifically want to talk to you guys about why, and even more importantly, why I feel the need to write an article about this right now, right? And the reason for this, guys, is the last couple of years, since I've been an educator, I've seen more and more people kind of gravitate toward this trend of photography of this cinematic style, right? And namely, I see these, I've seen this in a multitude of different places, but where I've seen it more often now is in my local market. Like, I go to a bridal show and photographers are using images that look very similar to the style of photography that we've shot in for years, and that was never the case before, right? But it's making me understand that this is becoming a more popular style of photography, especially because I'm seeing wedding blogs start to utilize photographers who are shooting in this environmental portraiture style of photography, right? But one of the things that I want to really touch base on is something that I've seen over and over again in the last maybe 18 months, right? And it is the tendency for photographers who are shooting in this style to rely way too heavily on post-production to get to their final look, right? So what ends up happening, guys, you have an image right here, right? And you need the image to get to your final vision, which is over here. So what ends up happening is the more that you edit, right? Let's just say this is straight out of camera, this is your final product. Well, the further that is away, right? The more editing that has to happen in between right here, the more the image is gonna look like it's overdone, right? And if you have a really good editor, let's just say you're using Evolve edits, or they're doing their signature edits on your images, okay? They can get the image to look pretty good, okay? But if you guys get it closer to that final product in camera, the image is gonna look a lot more believable, right? And at the end of the day, I feel like just like any other trend in photography, if we're utilizing post-production so much to get to our final look in the photo, that's gonna end up becoming overdone and trendy and dated, right? And that's not what we want. We wanna give our clients something that's timeless, that is going to stand the test of time 10 to 15 years down the line, right? So when we're looking at how to get things right in camera, we're looking at light direction, okay? We have to make sure that the light that we're using, if we're utilizing off-camera flash, which is pretty typical in this environmental style of photography, right? If we're utilizing off-camera flash, that the light direction makes sense. It's the same, it's coming from the same direction that it is in the natural environment, that the modifier that we're using matches the shape of the light that is in the background or in the environment, right? Is there a need for off-camera flash? Maybe we have beautiful sunlight that's giving us good directional light on our subject's face. Do we need to use off-camera flash to get that final look? And the answer sometimes is no, right? But more importantly, when we get this image into post-production, okay, if we start doing things like swap out skies and add texture and too much HDR, at the end of the day, guys, the image just looks overcooked, and when you print that and put that large on your client's wall, it is not going to look good. It might look good to them because they don't understand everything about photography, but just like with every other style of photography that has come and gone over the last couple of years, our clients' expectations are becoming more in line with what ours are as professionals, right? So if we're putting stuff on their wall that just generally doesn't look professional, or is overdone, or it looks trendy, which is probably the worst because that is sometimes hard to recognize early on in a trend, then eventually what ends up happening is these photos look dated and your style becomes old, right? So me as a photographer, guys, I'm constantly looking for new things to do. I'm constantly looking for ways to kind of reinvent our style and keep it timeless at the same time. But one of the things that I've noticed again is this trend toward over editing, right? So the reason why I wrote this article is because I want you guys to be aware when you guys are starting to look at your work that, when you start getting into your edit, maybe you're an hour in, take a step away from your computer, right? Go have dinner, right? Go have dinner, go do something else not related to photography, then come back and look at that image again, and then ask yourself, when you compare it with the actual raw file, how far from reality does this actually look, okay? And if the answer is that it looks way too far from reality, then I think you might want to maybe look at toning that image down or bringing it back just a little bit more. And the reason for that, again, is so that one day your images don't become, what's the word I'm looking for? Don't become a trend, right? We want it to look timeless, and we want it to almost look like it could have, the scene could have actually looked like that on the day of, right? So stop relying on your editing to get to that point. Instead, utilize good lighting, good composition, and keep your tones and your special effects, if you will, within the realm of what is actually possible. You don't want your clients to look like they're on a different planet, right? You want it to look like they're here on Earth, and you want these images to look more in line with what reality looks. Now, if you guys are not outsourcing, I highly recommend looking at Evolve Edits. You know, I don't get paid anything to tell you guys this, but I want you guys to understand that they do an incredible job, and Sal and his team invest a lot of money in their editors every year, making sure that their training is up to date. And if you don't believe me, just look at some of the work they've done over the last 5 years. It was really good, you know, back in 2014, but even the stuff that they're putting out now is just absolutely incredible, and it's believable, right? But if you guys, I totally get that, you know, paying for a signature edit on every job is not feasible. I understand that, and I think they do too, right? It's not really made to do for everybody. But if you guys have to edit yourselves, right, then look into learning how to do it with making it still look real and still look believable. And by the way, guys, I totally understand that at some points, you know, even myself, I'm guilty of this, right? And I want to make sure that my style of photography is, you know, trending toward the direction of reality as opposed to in the opposite direction toward that trend, right? And I want you guys to be realizing that as well too, because what we do is important. We want to protect it. We want it to last, and we want to make sure that, you know, we're not spreading the message out there that all you have to do is become a graphic artist and you could be a photographer. There's a lot more that goes into an image pre-production in order to get it to look right in post-production. So we talked real quick about editing. Let's talk about light for a second. A couple things that, you know, I think will make your images look a lot more believable, right? So first thing is the color of your light. If you're out there shooting at 7 p.m., the sun has just set, and you're using a bare flash, your light's not going to look believable. You're going to need to put a gel on that light in order to make it look like the actual ambient light, which is generally going to be warmer right as the sun goes down, right? So you want to match that color of light. You want to generally use a modifier that expresses the scene that you're in. So if I'm shooting in direct sunlight, right, it doesn't make sense all the time for an environmental portrait to have a big softbox to soften that light up on my subject, because if they're standing in direct sunlight and I'm using a flash to kind of overpower that and stop down my background a little bit, then I'm going to make sure that that light source is hard so it matches the light that's falling on the background. Real important thing. And then lastly, guys, direction of light. Now, if it's totally, in my opinion, okay to use the sun as like a backlight or a rim light and then add flash to your subject, because it could be anything. That light source could be reflecting off the sun, it could be reflecting off a window and coming back and landing on your subject. I think that's okay, right? Especially for this style of photography. But when it comes down to the direction of light, I want you guys to make sure that it matches. So for instance, if the sun is coming from this direction, right? If I add a white light from this direction, we're using this light now, which is mostly going to be a fill light. And if you're going to do that, make sure that the color matches, right? But now you're going to have flat lighting on your subject. So generally, if I am photographing and the sun is coming from this direction, right, I might use my off-camera flash in that same direction, because all the light that's falling on the background is going to follow that same pattern, right? So then it is going to look more believable. And at the end of the day, when you guys are editing your photos, okay, utilizing a light source that's believable is going to help bring that light or that final edit so much closer to reality, and it's going to look much more believable to the human eye. So that's all I got today, guys. You know, I can't wait to see what you guys do over the next couple of years. The readers of this magazine, the people in the Shutterfest community, your work has improved exponentially over the last couple of years, and it's been just amazing watching that journey for all of you guys. So, you know, again, can't wait to see what you guys are producing moving forward. And yeah, we'll catch you guys next month. Next month will be my fourth or fifth anniversary for writing for Shutter Magazine. So really excited, got a good article in mind, and can't wait for the wedding edition. Talk to you guys later. Thanks a lot.